You won't believe how a single, microscopic digital misstep turned what should have been a weekend gathering into a six-figure courtroom spectacle. It all began when I returned to the quiet sanctuary I'd carefully restored as a refuge from grief, and found strangers setting up tables right beside my wife's urn on the mantel. The HOA president smiled and waved a contract with my signature. A signature so perfect I might have believed it was mine, except I knew it wasn't. The only thing I didn't anticipate was that tiny digital tell hiding in that forged PDF, a metadata timestamp that, once uncovered, turned everything in my favor. And, before you ask, this all happened within 3 minutes flat in court. But let me take you from the beginning. Because clarity deserves context and justice was built one factual brick at a time. 6 months earlier, I had paid cash for an old, neglected lakefront mansion in a sleepy, HOA-managed North Carolina suburb. I wasn't seeking convenience or community. I was seeking peace, a place to carry on where the silence didn't scream. My wife, Eleanor, had passed, and with her, the comfort of our old home felt unbearable. In our dreams, we'd always envisioned a second chapter. Meandering walks by still water, sawdust drifting through sunlit rooms as I renovated something beautiful. Restoring this hollow house became my new purpose. I had spent 67 years of my life either managing construction sites or litigating cases in courtrooms. Every permit, inspection, stamp, and PDF was meticulously filed. I even obtained county approval that would allow me to operate the property as a short-term rental, just in case. That document, dated March 3rd, had been printed and framed in my mind as insurance, not for money, but for control. Control over my own life. The house was mine down to the pixel in that PDF. Then spring arrived. One bright Saturday morning, I received an email from a woman I'd barely exchanged a smile with at a mailbox meeting. She introduced herself as the HOA president, sweet as sugar, with marshmallow intent. She asked if she could host the welcome committee at my house. She praised the renovation, called it the crown jewel. But I wasn't ready. I told her, politely, that the house wasn't ready, that my wife's urn, my anchor to memory, still sat above the fireplace, and that it wasn't suitable for parties. That should have ended it. I left to buy wood stain. I came back and found my driveway lined with catering vans, printed signs stating event parking, with the HOA logo, string lights draped across the porch, and, most shockingly, a chef with an apron by the food warmers looking at me like I was the host. "You must be the owner," he said. "We're on schedule for tonight's event." There was nothing polite I could say in return. I just stared. He waved his phone, showed me a rental agreement, my signature, perfect but forged, and suddenly strangers were in my grief-stricken home, setting up for a party I never approved. I didn't panic, but I refused to be bluffed. I walked them off my property, shut the iron gate, locked it, and gently informed the head caterer that they were trespassing. He protested about deposits and party schedules, but I held firm. This was private property. I called the HOA president. "There's no event today. Wrong place. Wrong time," I said. She sighed and called me selfish. That's when I knew this wasn't a fuzzy misunderstanding. This was a play. I asked the caterer to forward me the contract. He did. I opened the PDF. Sleek, official, terrifying. But I know digital signatures and I know PDFs. I took a screenshot, emailed it to my niece, Trish, a paralegal who's sharp enough to slice paper, and went back to the document. It looked perfect until her voice came on the line. "That's sloppy." She walked me through it, the PDF's metadata. It showed creation on March 15th, but her email to the caterer had been on April 10th. A document can't be created 3 weeks after it's supposedly sent, unless someone is lying. That's when this got serious. Then the HOA fined me, a violation of bylaws, for refusing to host the pre-approved event. They claimed I'd given a verbal agreement weeks ago. My blood froze. I pulled up my doorbell camera logs, Installed the day I moved in. No visits, no conversations, only packages, the mailbox, and neighborly wildlife, not a single HOA board member. No agreement, no access, no consent. And I had the video files to prove it. Then one of my neighbors forwarded an HOA group email forwarded by Karen to everyone. "He's just bitter," it said, "but don't worry, I have the keys." I sat back and stared at the cherrywood box perched next to the urn. They'd trespassed on my grief. I collected every piece of evidence: the forged document, metadata proof, doorbell logs, the email about keys, flyers blaming me for rescinding the event. Each one filed, labeled, organized. I created a binder named Marson Forgery Trespass and wrote a little instruction set inside: how to match timestamps in PDFs via Properties tab, how to trace email headers to show send time, how to collect logs from security systems. Because bullies don't fight fair, but you can if you're calm, organized, and insistent. My plan was simple. Go into the HOA meeting, lay out the facts, let the evidence speak, and withdraw quietly. The monthly meeting took place in the community clubhouse. I walked in, binder under my arm, and waited for comment time. I spoke. No, I didn't agree to anything. I don't have evidence of a visit. There is no precedent of such events on private homes. I produced a public records request showing 0 private home event permits in a decade. I produced past newsletters. All events had happened in communal spaces or parks, never private property. The room was silent. Karen sputtered. Forgery is a strong word, but I responded with quiet assurance. What is this claim referencing? I produced the records. I produced the binders. And then, when they accused me of being selfish, I reminded them that you can't vote against gravity. Forged documents fall the same way. I left before they could talk back. My neighbor Jerry followed me in the hallway, bumped my fist, and we both understood the moment. Power had shifted. Karen then tried passive-aggressive peace, an apology letter, followed by a community event release form that asked me to acknowledge the mix-up and consent to a future event, except it never addressed forgery. If I signed, I would be admitting the event was ever agreed to. Bear trap in formal clothing. I slapped "nice try" across it and added it to my evidence. Then came the flyers. Mr. Brooks had previously agreed in spirit, but now won't host. That went in the binder too, and then the motion alarms. A fuzzy security camera in the garage caught 2 men trying the door and then meeting Ed, the treasurer, by the street. They said, if he won't host, we cut the power. Guys literally planning sabotage. That was it. The conspiracy line had been crossed. I backed it up with video evidence, logged in my cloud, safe. So the day of the would-be party dawned bright. I watched from my window as vendors arrived and guests gathered at my gate, completely oblivious to the cancellation. A police car pulled up at 3. I opened the door with my binder in hand and handed the officers the forged contract with highlighted metadata, the doorbell logs, the flyers, and the email where Karen called me mentally unstable. I told them it was a civil matter and presented them with the truth. They said they couldn't force me to open my gate, and they left. Karen's face told the story, blank in the realization. What she thought was a sense of control evaporated in the presence of documented facts. But she didn't stop. She sent a final email to the RSVP list, accusing me of instability and saying she canceled for safety reasons. Defamation added to the mix. I slipped it into the binder, too. And then I walked to the courthouse with it all, filing a small claims lawsuit for $100,000 against the HOA as an entity, Karen Marson, Ed, and 1 other complicit board member, charging them with trespass, fraud, defamation, and conspiracy. 2 weeks later, I walked into the courtroom with my binder. The judge, a serious woman, gave me 5 minutes. I spent less than that. I handed over Exhibit A, the forged contract with mismatched date. Exhibit B, security video logging visits, or, rather, the absence of visits. Exhibit C, the malicious communications and flyers. Exhibit D, the sabotage video of Ed conspiring to cut my power. Judge looked at Karen, asked her point blank if she authored it. She admitted, and the judge, tapping the metadata detail, said the case was closed. She found in my favor for the full $100,000, verdict delivered in under 3 minutes. It echoed through the courtroom like thunder. The HOA was liable, and insurance picked it up, but my real reward was quiet. The culture of intimidation collapsed. Karen resigned days later, reading a formal statement accepting responsibility. The HOA held a new election and chose my neighbor Jerry. He passed new rules about private property events requiring notarized, owner-signed consent. No more silence, no more assumptions. And me? I went back to the lake, finished shelving law books and Eleanor's novels next to her ashes on the shelf I'd made. I installed a keypad gate with a hidden camera by the new, sturdy latch. My home, my memory, guarded not by bark or bullet, but by truth and evidence. That's why a single digital timestamp mistake can cost 6 figures, but more importantly, why it's never the lies that win. It's the evidence that tells.